Hey, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are in the world. I'm going to take you through the Domo MMM Premium offering today. I'm going to take you through the actual app, how it works, what the charts are, what you can see on screen. Also, a little bit about pre-setup as well with customers that may be coming on board, and then also show you the SharePoint site at the end in terms of where all the information is. So let's dive in, let's have a walk through. So the screen I'm sharing right now is actually the app within inside Domo. If we have a Domo existing customer, they will go to their usual app location and see the actual Domo MMM installed inside of their dashboard. If it's a brand new customer, what we do with Domo MMM Premium is that we actually install a brand new instance for them. We'll also install an instance for the Stellar Jupyter Notebook as well, but that won't be visible to the customer base. So a customer comes in and we'll double click actually on the app, and that will open up the app with inside of Domo. So what you see in here is actually the welcome screen to Domo MMM. It tells you all about what the app is, what it actually does in terms of what it undertakes, what it covers, what marketing mix modeling actually is. And then also you'll see at the top a view last results button as well. So any customer who's actually been using the app will be able to come here and just open up results that they've run previously and be able to get that full report without having to run through the full analysis once again. So what I'm actually now going to do is, well, before I actually jump into the app, let me just step back a little bit, and I touched on this in my introduction. When a customer comes on board, actually we assume that all of their data is ready to be analysed. But as we know, many customers may have marketing data in many different places and want to be able to bring that together. So as in typical Domo fashion, what we have is we'll build them a fantastic data workflow where we'll bring all of their inputs from their data sources, whether it's Google Analytics, you'll see Omniture on here. Also then control variables, which we'll touch on in a short while. What control variables are is maybe promotions that have been run, maybe organic information or information that comes from services which are offline, such as TV, which is billboards, for example, which is radio. And all of that data can be uploaded into our ETL and then obviously joined together and to make then the data set at the end. And as you can see from here, we've got a number of data that's been coming through, whether that's from Adobe, whether that's from Omniture, as I mentioned, whether that's also coming through from offline analytics data, and that all then feeds directly through into a data set at the end. Now, what the data set will look like is actually on the screen here. This is an example data set. So when you are working with Domo MMM Premium, we actually have 8 different data sets that you can trial and test with a customer. And they cover a range of different scenarios. So there may be different channels, there may be different control variables. So you can actually show the customer how it works, but also see if it aligns with how their business runs today. Within inside this particular instance, we have date and sales. We have promo details, which is actually one of the control variables. And then a huge list here of like Google data. You'll see as we go through Bing data, metadata, etc., even right through to Pinterest data as well. And then again, another control variable, which is organic inside of here as well, where they've done some organic outreach to their customers and also email SMS as well. Once we have it into this format, and one of the key formats here is around the date here. So this needs to be a minimum of 104 weeks for every single customer. We actually have sales revenue data here, and then we actually have all the costs which are then associated with it. And this is a really good data set. You can see here 144 rows, 104, as I mentioned, is minimum. We want 2 years worth of data to be able to undertake the analysis, but all values on inside of the data set don't have to be filled. As you can see from here on Google Demand, we expect customers turn off certain channels and turn them back on at particular times. Might be to do with promotion, might be seasonality, for example. That is absolutely fine. So don't expect full data for every single row. The model will be able to take care of that for you too. So let's jump back into the app. So we click on Get Started, and then we'll be welcomed by the Map Your Data screen. So inside of here, we'll then pick up that data set. So the MMM data set 6, as mentioned here, there it is. We've now picked that up into here. It's shown that it's actually got a date field. It's also found a number of fields. It does it in essence like a little pre-flight check, so to speak. You can preview the data set inside of here as well. We are going to set the revenue amount as sales because that's what we want to the model to check against. And then what we do is we then walk through and add each of the different channels. As you add a channel, it actually disappears from the list. So there's no confusion, especially when customers have lots of different channels. So as you can see from here, Google, Meta, Bing, that we're all adding in. We'll go down all the way to Pinterest. Let's do it on 10 channels today. Date field is obviously going to be date in this instance. We are going to pick, because we've had a look at the data set, January 2023. So if you just scroll upwards here, pick on January, pick on 2nd of Jan. And then if we go here, we'll go back to January 2025 on the 2nd, giving us 2 years worth of data. It'll also do a check. The app will do a check for you here. So it's checking all the rows that are actually in data range. There's 105, which is great. As mentioned, 104 is the minimum that we have. We also then want to check the results against some situations that happened inside the business. So imagine I ran a promotion, or there was a particular event that went on, or I was running an outreach program, for example. You can add these control variables in, and they'll actually be used as part of the model to check against when revenue was driven across different channels in particular weeks. So in this instance, we're going to pick promo, organic, and also email. And the model will actually show you the impact that they had also on the weeks that you ran against each of those different marketing channels as well. You can add more control variables, the ability to keep adding more as it goes through. There is no maximum allowed on here. We expect customers to trial and test as it goes through because they want to look at different lenses of their data and how that works. But there is a minimum of 2 that we expect in here from a control variable perspective. You can add also in here some custom variables as well. So you may have additional factors where you actually don't have the data, but you want to add some binary data in here as well. So you may have that all actually within inside another data set, and you can add that into here too. And yes is 1, 1 is for yes, and 0 is for no in terms of what happened during that week. Obviously, you can add it back into the core data set, but if you have a separate one, we allow customers to add that into. Now, incremental return on advertising spend is actually a key metric. Now, this will the analysis will take the data that you have, but you may have iROAS data from prior to those 2 years, and you want to add those in. So we actually allow the customer to add in that iROAS data if they have it in a separate form or in a separate database, again, to enrich the data in terms of what happened previously and what's going to happen into the future when we run the model. Once we have that, you can preview all of the data in here. Shows the revenue data, the different marketing channels, control variables, etc. Shows that there was no prior information that was added. And then what we'll do is we'll save and continue here. Now, what will happen from here is the screen will come up and it will show you here what analysis is going to be undertaken. Just again, a triple check. How many channels, how many control variables. You can preview the config again if you want to. But if not, and you want to move forward, we can then run the Stellar MMM analysis. So what we'll do is we'll press on this button and this will now run. Normally takes, as it says, between 7 and 15 minutes. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back once it's completed. So now that the analysis is complete, took around about 6 minutes to complete that. As we can see, it's analysed the 10 channels. It's given a model R2 rating of 0.87, and I'll come on to that in due course in terms of what that means. Anything over 0.8 is good, but again, I'll explain that in due course. And then also it shows, based on those 10 channels, the actual channels generated $53.2 million worth of incremental revenue. And it says here just a little bit more details at the bottom around the approach that was taken from a Bayesian perspective, how it looks at the base, i.e. what would you have achieved by spending nothing on any of the channels, also then looking what you spend in the future. It then looks at ad stock and saturation. So basically it's looking at the diminishing returns, is the true incrementality that's going on. And then also within inside the tool, we'll touch on budget optimization as well. So let's dive into these insights and recommendations. So this is the main screen after the model runs. So let me walk you through the results that you're seeing. So it's numbers, 53 million in incremental revenue. That's actually not total revenue. That's a portion the model can prove that was driven by marketing. The model R2 number of 0.87 actually means that the model was able to explain 87% of what's happening with that marketing revenue. And that's super, super strong. It shows that the data was good and the model's working extremely well. MAPE of 14.8% also means that the predictions are typically within inside 14% of actual results. So when you see these figures and you'll see the revenue figures, there's a variance there of around about 14%. Again, from a modeling and probabilistic and statistical perspective, that's really excellent. And it's good enough to make decisions on too. We'll see these numbers pop up again in further tabs, especially statistical analysis, and it'll also point to the customer of whether that number is good, fair, or needs extra work. But just at a headline number, that's what you'll see on this first screen as you come through. And below that, every channel now gets a card. And the card shows the incremental return on advertising spend. And this is the real return, not the vanity metrics that the platform reports. So if we look at Google brand search, for example, 19.1x of iROAS. So for every pound you spend, you're getting back £19.10 or $19.10 back in incremental revenue. That green tick means that it's performing well. Obviously, if you see a cross, it's not performing very well if you look down at Google non-brand search. And obviously, there's the meta retention as well at 2.3. Once you've viewed your iROAS numbers, you can also see these in a chart form if you actually scroll down. So you can actually see them, how they actually compare each other just in a different format. You can then also click on Cortex Analysis. So for people that are using Domo MMM Premium and actually hosting that on top of Snowflake, once they actually press on this button, what it'll do is it'll undertake an analysis of all the data above. So not only the iROAS spend, but also the performance that you see. And what it'll actually do is we used a specialized system prompt for MMM, and it'll actually review that analysis and provide you with some what we class as kind of plain English responses in terms of how things are performing, not only things that you can take a look at, but also things to watch out for too. You'll see this Cortex Analysis button actually in different parts of the Domo MMM products. And moving forward, you'll also see Snowflake Intelligence fully built into the product as well. And we'll add that to the video once it's completed. So as you can see from here, the Cortex Analysis is showing you what top performers they are, what probable budget shifts you can do, and we'll come on to that a little bit more because we have that in budget allocation too. And also the watch list as well. So it's a really nice kind of quick, easy report that you can pull out and send to senior stakeholders. So now we're going to jump on to contribution view. And if you are, well, your senior stakeholders are actually CFOs, this is probably one of the most important charts for explaining how marketing value works. So it starts on the left-hand side with a baseline. That's the revenue you get with zero marketing. What that actually means is people who would buy from you because they know your brand anyway. They're walking past maybe your store, or they've actually had word of mouth, or they've actually seen something themselves. Then each bar adds the channel's incremental contribution. So as you can see from there, Google PMax Shopping is adding 20.5 million, and then it looks to build up all the way through. You can also then see the impact of your control variables as well. So you can actually see how well, or actually maybe not well, your outreach has been performing on things like, say, email, for example, or certain promotions, or, say, organic outreach. The red bar that you see on the screen, and that's email SMS, is at a negative 3.2 million. Now, as you can see, 3.1 million. The model is saying that the channel might actually be hurting rather than actually helping, or at least not contributing positively. So that's something definitely to take a look at. All of that incremental revenue actually then adds up to the green bar on the right, and that shows you the total revenue that we have at 57.4 million. The summary at the bottom actually shows the total incremental revenue from marketing, your top performing channel, and then also how much it's actually contributing in percentage terms to actually the revenue waterfall chart as well. And you'll see that broken down a little bit further on the screen. So before anybody acts on these recommendations, they need to know they can trust the model. And that's what this screen shows. We talked about model R2 before, so let's just dive in a little bit more. So model R2 of 0.87, that's saying that the model explains 87% of the variance in the revenue. The other 13% is stuff that isn't captured, such as maybe competitor activity, weather, random events, for example. 0.87 is marked as good, and it actually is. Do you know, above 0.8 means the model has a solid handle on what's actually driving the business. Obviously, if that's lower, you need to go and take a look at the data. Maybe you need to add some more data points in and some more control variables as well. MAPE of 14.8 is when the model predicts revenue. It's typically within 14% of what actually happens. So if it says you'll make $1 million, expect that's something between 860 and maybe 1.14 million. This is tight enough range to plan around as well. So that's also marked as good. The total incremental revenue is showing the total revenue contribution from marketing. The Cortex Analysis button, again, will take you into AI-powered insights if you want plain English explanations. And this screen is actually good for credibility checking, so good R2, good map A, recommendations are worth acting upon. So we'll just click on that Cortex Analysis button, and then we'll see that pop up. And then once that's actually finished and we've just gone through that, we'll then dive into some of the VIF analysis and the correlation matrix down below too. I always feel sometimes that we should have some, say, kind of supermarket music, but here we go. So it says here, look, it's explaining a little bit what I've just explained in terms of the model R2, whether it's good, whether it can be trustworthy, for example. It goes into a little bit of top performing channels, also then talks around marketing impacts as well, of whether it's high, whether it's working, and then provides you with some strategic recommendations as well. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit more detail next. So let's dive into the VIF factor here. So what this is actually showing, the variance inflation factor by variable, this is checking whether we can trust the results from each individual channel. And here's the problem it actually tries to catch. If two channels always move together, so every time you increase Google, you also increase Meta, the model can't tell which one actually is driving results. It gets too tangled up. So what VIF does, it actually measures this for you. So the yellow dashed line at 5 is moderate, the red line at 10 is a danger zone. Looking at the data, we can actually see that the Google PMAX shopping is at 5.3, just over moderate. And then we can actually see the Meta retargeting is at 4.7. The Pinterest is at 4.4. All others are comfortably below 5. Nothing is above 10, which is good. Something is above 10. We'd say be careful with this recommendation on that channel. This model might be attributing results to the wrong place. So what this chart's actually telling us is it's telling us the data is clean enough that we can trust the individual channel results and there's no major flex. Now onto my most favorite chart with inside of this app is the correlation matrix 2. I think it looks very autumn, but coming away from what I actually like from a color perspective, let's dive into this in a bit more detail. This correlation matrix is actually the same idea as VIF, but it's actually shown visually and which channels move together. So green means low correlation, i.e. these channels are independent. The model can separate their effects cleanly towards revenue. Red, yellow and orange means that there's moderate correlation, worth noting, but not a problem. Red would mean high correlation, so be careful with those results. As we can see from this matrix, most combinations, i.e. I'm running a particular channel like Meta and Google at the same time, most combinations are green or light yellow. There's some orange patches, as you can see. There's also as well just a couple of darker orange as well, but nothing's deep red, so no major problems. What this is actually saying is it's giving you confidence that when the model says that a particular channel is driving a certain amount of revenue, it can actually tell those apart in terms of how it's driving that revenue. So it's not doing any guesswork in that either. Obviously, if it is red, we can dive into that in a little bit more detail as well. Outer sample analysis, as you can see on the screen here, is actually a wonderful chart, and it's all about trust. This is really the chart that shows you, is the model performing well and can we trust the data? Is the data that the model predicting, is it predicting data that it's never seen before, or is it just memorized? So let's dive into this chart a little bit more. So here's what we did. The grey line on the left is training data, what we showed the model. The dashed line is where we split it. Everything to the right, the model never saw during training. So it's normally about an 80-20 split. The black dots are actual revenue, what really happened, and the red line is what the model predicted, and the pink shaded area is the confidence range. And look how closely the dots follow the red line. The model predicted these weeks accurately, even though it had never seen them before. So it looks at 80% of the data, and then we said, right, there's 80%. Now we want you to now go and predict using that model for the rest of the 20% and show us actually what you predicted. And it's actually showing us it predicted it really well. So as you can see that it's performed extremely solid on unseen data, which is excellent. And the final one on this tab is actually the channel contribution analysis. And this shows how each channel contribution changes over time, week by week or across the whole period. You can actually move onto the chart and actually see what its impact has been having any particular week, any particular time, and by channel, and how much incremental revenue is actually being shown as well. The baseline at the bottom is in light green. That's the revenue without marketing, as we talked about before. And it's self-explanatory. Each color stack is on top showing which channel added for each week. You can see the spikes inside of here. That's probably seasonality, maybe promotional periods that were happening, also peak trading as well. But you can also look at the composition. During those peaks, which channels were driving the extra revenue and which ones were doing the heavy lifting and which ones weren't contributing. In the quieter months, say like May through to August, the mix is different. Baseline's bigger proportion, the marketing contribution is smaller. This can really help with planning. If you know Q4 is when actually Google's going to perform really well, you might want to shift more budget there during those peak seasons. And if certain channels don't pull their weight during that quiet period, maybe reduce them as well. It's not just what works overall, it's what works when. So now we're going to move back up to the top of the app, and we're going to look into budget allocation. Budget allocation is we talked about predictability with the out of sample analysis on the previous tab. This is now actually putting this into action. So what this screen's actually showing the customer is saying, look, your total budget, and here it was 8.02 million. If we actually took all of that budget and actually now put in place what the future could look like based on the results of what we've seen from the future, I actually changed the budget allocation across a number of your different channels. Here's what you could have actually achieved. So rather than actually having $53 million worth of incremental revenue, if you actually implement these changes now, you would expect to see $68.42 million worth of revenue coming through. And that's a revenue uplift of 28.6 million. So this gives a really good way of not actually, like I say, looking historically, but using the model to look forward and give an idea of if we actually change some of the channel models today, what we could hopefully predict based on the historical events that we'd seen in the past. Now, obviously, that has some caveats to it. You may be changing promotions, and buyer profiles might be a little bit different. But the whole idea of this app is to enrich thinking, to drive some kind of efficiency in terms of how to get that breadth of the channel analysis and to help you with your planning and estimations of how you want to move forward. It's by definition not supposed to be perfect, and that's why we've called it a sidekick to help all marketeers. But say actually you now see those recommended budget allocations, and now you want to go and test those out. So what we've actually built inside of the tool is an ability for customers now to say, actually, I now want to play around with certain scenarios. So inside of here, we've built this budget optimizer. So you can actually move your budget. We can change that. We can maximize it. We can do it over different timeframes, quarterly, years, for example, all with the idea of maximizing revenue. So imagine taking that budget allocation view and actually go and implementing that. But you might say, actually, no, do you know Google PMax shopping? I want to put that 28.7%. I might actually change that to push that up in May. Let's see what happens. I might do that on a quarterly basis. Let's see what happens. So inside of here, you can actually go through on each one and untick here and actually change your spend. You might say, actually, what happens if I zero out all of my PMax shopping? What actually happens then? Now, we know from the correlation matrix and the VIF matrix how the channels are actually operating independently. But if you do have some red tags, some red boxes, or the VIF is particularly high, you can come into this budget optimizer as well and actually zero out some of the channels, run the budget optimizer and see what happens. And that will give you a better view around how the channels are performing too. So you can play around with this. The customers are able to use this as many times as they want. I'm actually just going to go ahead with what we've put in here and run the optimizer. Now the optimizer is similar. It goes through the same model that we have to do the analysis at the beginning. So this will take around about 5 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll run the optimizer now. That will then show here that it's actually going to run through. It'll analyze the channel data. I'll pause the video and we'll come back once it's completed. So the optimization is now run. And as you can see, we actually zeroed out the PMax shopping. And what the actual, once the budget scenario is run, it'll actually produce two things, an optimization chart at the bottom here. So it can actually show it based on the values that we've had in. Previously, the current allocation for meta prospecting, based on the historical model and the analysis and how it predicts moving forward, it's suggesting an uplift of optimization for that. And as you can see from here, PMax shopping is the current. It's not optimized in any way. What's also quite interesting is how it shows actually not only the current, but what would happen around Pinterest if actually to move forward as well. So an 11% drop. And you can run this budget optimizer as many times as you want, and the results will show up here. Obviously, we expected to see these results drop off because I did something quite, as you moved Google PMax shopping, one of the best channels all the way down to 0. So did we expect to see a 26.2% revenue drop? Yes, we did. But what's great as well is that actually we store all of this into the history. So every time a budget optimization scenario is actually run, it'll pre-populate inside of here. So anytime a customer can go back and view results as well. And finally, look, we have an export PNG piece here. What this will enable you to do is actually get a full view of all of the different charts that you have in here. And to be able to export them, you may want to put them into reports or into presentations that you want to send on. Saves you doing a print screen or a copy and paste from here as well. So that should help the customer. And then finally, look, you can go back at any stage to see where you are, back to the analysis, or also run a brand new analysis as well. And I touched on this right at the beginning. If we go right back to the welcome screen, you can also view your last results. So let's just dive into that. We ran one yesterday on dataset 6. If I bring that up, what it actually does is it takes you to the analysis screen in terms of when it's completed, shows you all the details. If you click on View Insights and Recommendations, that actually now show up on the screen. It's just loading all of these from the storage area. The storage area for Domo MMM is actually either with inside Domo, but as a default, we actually store it into a Snowflake instance. We have Databricks coming forward in the next couple of weeks, and also Google as well. But as you can see, you can load up your previous results too. I hope you enjoyed that walkthrough of Domo MMM Premium. If you have any further questions, either reach out to myself, Andrina, or Simon from the team over in EMEA as well, from a partner team perspective. And we look forward to you deploying this with your customers. This is the main result.